The following is a conversation. It has the features of any conversation, such as imperfectly expressed thoughts, ill-considered opinions, and the notions of several sleep-deprived brains. Try not to get your stethoscope in a twist about it.
The absolute worst thing about being a podcaster is having to go back and listen to yourself again. Is excruciating.
This is the objection I've heard from a lot of people that say they don't want to come on a podcast, and it's like the whole point is that you don't have to. You were there.
Yeah. You guys get to enjoy that benefit of not having to go back and listen to your to yourself.
I would never edit my own podcast. No thing. Like auto-tuning your voice.
That's true.
I have a question though, because I'm opening the floor to judge me. Because I've never really found my own recorded voice cringeworthy. I know that's a kind of universal thing, but it's like I feel like because people's intonation, it sounds higher in recordings because you don't have reverberation.
Because you don't have right.
Yeah, and I almost like it when my voice is higher.
I don't have that particular problem anymore. I actually like my voice, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it, so I, don't feel gross about when I go to listen to it. Although I'm sure at first I was like, but
I do hate my laugh on the podcast. That's one thing.
I did used to, like when I would make recordings or record myself doing karaoke or something. If I find something I don't like about my voice, like I used to think I was super nasally or I'd sound like a child for some reason, try and just change my voice a little bit to get used to speaking a different way.
Yeah. Oh, so like while you're, okay. I thought you were talking about post-production. She was I'm going to fiddle with it.
I mean, like, it's kind of like looking in a mirror where you hear yourself, do I like how I sound? Let's talk with like an opener.
I did that to my handwriting all through school. I would see someone's like the way they wrote an A and I'd be like, oh, that's so cool and pretty. And then I would like write it over and over again until it became my handwriting.
Oh my gosh.
I just gave up. Someone was like, that's handwriting that like a doctor would have. And they meant it as like an insult. And I was like,
perfect.
That's cool.
Yeah,
great. Love that.
I'll do that.
I'm never gonna like learn how to write my letters better now.
How much of society and culture is born out of just feeling shitty about yourself?
100%. All of it? I mean, isn't that basically art? Like, it's just like, I'm feeling shitty about myself and I need it.
I don't like the way I make my, I don't like the way I make my eye. That person does it better. I'm going to put a little heart over it like they do.
Meandering in the margins of medicine, it's the Shortcoat Podcast.
Weird news,
fresh views,
helpful clues, and interviews.
By students, for students.
Subscribe to our weekly show at theshortcoat.com.
Welcome back to the Shortcoat Podcast. The show that gives you an inside look at medical school from the students drinking from that fire hose. It's a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. I'm Dave Etler. With me today in the SCP studio, sweet baby Jesus, it's PA2 Julie Vuong.
Hi.
Saints Preserve Us, it's MD PhD student Miranda Schene.
Hi.
My stars, it's MD PhD student Faith Prochaska.
What's up?
And holy smokes, it's M2 Holly Hemann.
That's me.
Go ahead, co-host one, read.
We are always excited to offer you advice about medical school, from getting in to graduating, and to take suggestions about other topics we can bring to you. So, what do you want to hear? Go to the Shortcoat Podcast. No.
Now you know my life.
theshortcoast.com/tell us to make this show your show, because sometimes Dave runs out of ideas and he could really use your help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reading that. We're just going to jump right into the show. Sometimes I have a thing. Sometimes I have a thing to talk about, but we got a lot to do today, and a lot of very important things to do today.
Very important.
The older I get, the more often I find myself questioning things. Was the past really as great as it seems? For instance, are we progressing as a species? Am I the asshole? I don't know about the past and our progress, but there is a whole subreddit where I can go to ask random strangers if I've been a jerk.
Faith, stop touching the microphone.
Faith has microphone issues again.
Well, you should.
Is Faith the asshole for making our listeners hear that noise?
You can edit it out. Is Dave the asshole for leaving that
in the YouTube comments?
Yeah, if Dave decides to leave it in. If it was my fault for trying to fix the microphone, or Dave's for leaving it in and not cutting it out.
I think I'll leave it in.
Now
Yes.
you have to.
Now I have to. There is a whole subreddit I can go to ask random strangers if I've been a jerk, and a question commonly abbreviated AITA. So let's visit that subreddit for Am I the Asshole Med School Edition. Holly, you found some of these for us.
Yes.
Do you have is there an introduction for the first one?
That was quite an introduction. So I tried to pick ones that lead us through the whole med school journey, from pre-med all the way to graduating and thinking about finances and residency. So our first one is going to start us off in the pre-med admissions hellhole that we all started in.
A time when you're not sure of anything and you have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just jump right into that one.
In undergrad, I ran a student group, organizing volunteers and tracking their hours. A friend later asked me to be her reference for medical school, claiming 400 volunteer hours. My records showed she had less than 30 hours, so I asked for proof. She was shocked and found someone else to verify her hours. She got into an MD program, but felt betrayed by me. I apologized and explained that 400 hours seemed impossible, given her frequent claims of being too busy to volunteer. I wanted to maintain integrity in the application process. I showed her the volunteer hours spreadsheet for transparency, but she accused me of keeping bad records, insisting I missed hundreds of her hours. Some unrecorded hours are possible, but I offered her a chance to provide evidence, which she didn't. She accused me of fixating on hours and being unsupportive. She ended the discussion, and I wished her the best. I feel I was reasonable and upheld integrity. Am I the asshole?
No, of course not. Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is a friend, though. Wouldn't you do anything for a friend, including compromise your ethics and integrity?
I feel like I've met people like this because my high school also had a volunteer hour system. I have met people that are like that get really fixated on the hours and insist they've rounded up and done more. And I'm not friends with those people anymore.
I think it'd be another story if you could actually provide evidence that you did work those hours.
Yeah.
If you were like, I worked this day, this many hours, this day, blah, 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 whatever. And you had that timeline and they were just like, oh, I forgot to record these days, whatever.
Why is this a necessary service, though? I mean,
well, I'm like, let me take over the conversation by stuttering.
Go for it.
Almost every volunteer, especially in high school and college, will have you record volunteer hours. And it's not just for things like medical school. Like, for example, the place I volunteer at now, I don't care how many volunteer hours I have, but they need it for their own grants. They need to know how many hours their volunteers are working. So if it were let's just say hypothetically, she was correct and whoever this volunteer coordinator was keeping inaccurate records, that's a problem he needs to deal with, because if they're applying for grant funding, if they're applying for certain kinds of loans, they need that information on hand.
No, I get the reason why you would record your hours. The question I have is why there's a central person who's not you recording your hours. I mean, if it were me, my daughter is learning how to drive, and one of the things that we are supposed to do, I guess, is have a log of hours.
Track of it.
I made a Google form. Google form that we can go and fill out, and it records her hours.
Yeah, and it's lovely that you record that for yourself, but
Faith, they're doing it organization-wide for everybody.
Yeah,
so they're not recording it just for their friend. They're recording it they're keeping a central database for everyone who volunteers for that organization.
So make the Google form accessible to everybody.
But then people can lie.
Yeah, then people can go in and edit it and tell them, oh yeah, I totally have all these hours.
And I think it's a big thing for pre-meds to get really obsessed about how many hours do I have to do this thing. Yeah. And so I think then you get people who are really fixated on bolstering their hours when, to be honest, it's not that. I think
a factor of 10 might be overdoing it a little bit in this case.
Yeah, and it's 400 volunteer hours is insane.
How many hours do you think you did of just volunteering, not shadowing or?
Actually, I do remember. I think I got across my entire 4 years of high school, I got 300 volunteer hours of everything I did ever. Okay. Of shadowing, I maybe got 20 because but that's just because I started playing really late. Mm-hmm. But the example I was going to bring up was that
Julie's you wuss.
But
PA is a whole other beast.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm an MD PhD, so most of my pre-med was spent in the lab. And I think I remember claiming, 200 hours in a year in the lab. And that was me spending like 5-6 hours a day in lab. And I almost felt like that was pushing it in terms of the number of hours I was claiming. So like 400 and like, I don't know what this place is, but that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't go back and exactly tally up how much I had worked in the lab. I did like, it's this much for like every week throughout the school year, this much over the summer, this much on breaks, and like estimated it, but it probably wasn't as far off proportionally as this person's was.
Yeah, I say that because it's like 20 hours per week for like 15 weeks. Yeah, like that's a second job. That's a part-time job. And I feel like she could have probably claimed 400 hours if she was there for as a part-time job. Sure. It sounds like probably not.
Because it is like literally unpaid time that you're
well, and also it sounds like she is going straight from undergrad to the MD program too, which I think is a big thing because I did have more volunteer hours than this on my application, but I was non-traditional, so I didn't go straight from undergrad. I had several years of a gap in between, so I had a lot of volunteering that happened in those years too.
Yeah, because you're not trying to like, because you were doing, it sounds like you were doing a lot of your volunteering in a time where you also weren't in undergrad studying.
Yeah. So there was like a lot of time for me.
So the theory of having this person keep track for the organization, let's say, or for the school, I guess is where the setting where this is taking place, is that it's harder to lie to a person than it is to lie to a form. Yes. I'm still hung up on the like I would desperately want to automate this process.
Well, how could you remember volunteering hours for everybody?
I remember during COVID, I actually started like a volunteer organization, and part of it, I kind of realized that a lot of college students are going to need their volunteer hours. So we'd all log into Zoom to do our we did free tutoring, part of like Mastery Hour and something. And Zoom would actually create like a CSV.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Of all of like the minutes, down to the minute that people were actually like in the call.
Wait, this is possible? This might change my life.
Yeah, you can go to your meeting records. They have like meeting minutes. I made sure everybody used the same like name every single time, or like first and last name, so I can just search it up and then tally the hours. So I was able to like just write up like, you know what,
it doesn't really change my life, but I can see how it would.
That's
I can
really
see how it
cool.
would.
Google Hangouts does the same thing too.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say is that like one thing that I know about volunteer organizations is that the level of technical expertise is wide and varied, because I have definitely met organizations that still like they do paper and pencil volunteer record logging because the organization is run by a bunch of like 75-year-old retirees who just don't want to bother. And I have sympathy for this because this will be me when I'm 75. I just don't want to bother.
Yeah, you'll be like, the AI isn't working.
Yeah. I'm just, I don't get technology now. What makes you think I'm going to figure out the sign up genius of 2075?
And I don't think it's like necessary for a volunteer organization to be recording your hours. Like it's something that you can offer as a volunteer organization, but there are people who are just going to do stuff.
I think it just depends on what your organization is doing, how you're getting funding, etc.
Yeah.
And if you say that you're verifying people's hours, you need...
Yeah, if you're verifying hours, then you want some proof.
The person too on the other end applying for a program like this that wants those hours, then I think a lot of it is on you to track that and make sure that it's correct. So
here's what I would do. I would come up with a system whereby somebody entered in their own hours. That generates an email to a verified email address for whoever you're volunteering with, that they would verify your hours, and if it was incorrect, they would be able to reply and say, no, that's not right.
Or if I may, the way that
you may.
My current place I volunteer at works at, you sign up for a shift and then that shift time is just automatically recorded and you can just like cancel it if they didn't show up.
Yeah.
So basically that, except without the extra step of like self-reporting. Because again, future medical students, I love you. You're doing great. Some of you are not awesome. And some of you will lie. And if you're thinking of doing that, please don't. Most
do
of
it.
you are lovely, but some of you.
It's just, you know,
and it's just a number.
Calls into question your integrity and your
like say about her volunteer experience. Like, wow, you spent 400 hours. What did you do?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
That's the other thing is like the hours don't really actually mean that much, but if you say that you spent all this time, they are going to want to talk to you about it in your interview.
You spent so much of your life doing it, obviously.
Yeah.
What's our next one?
So our next one is taking a bit of a turn. So This is from a non-medical standpoint, talking about witnessing emergencies out in the wild.
Okay.
Ooh.
Let's hear about this.
Interesting.
My husband and one of his childhood friends, Fred, are both Eagle Scouts. I am not and was never in Girl Scouts or the like. My husband came home excitedly one day and said that Fred had been on a flight, and an announcement had been made asking, "Is there a doctor on board?" Fred had gone up to the passenger and flight attendant to help. My husband thought that was super cool. I, however, did not have the expected reaction. I said, "What? Why did he go? He's not a medical professional. He's a programmer." My husband said, "Yep, but we were Eagle Scouts. We get tons of medical training, so he could definitely help." I was a bit taken aback by that because I myself have worked in medicine for 5+ years and am a third-year medical student, and I don't know how qualified even I would feel in that situation. I continued, "I mean, I'm sure you got some wilderness med training, but I really don't think an Eagle Scout is qualified. And anyway, you're 30. That was over a decade ago that you would have received any training." He scoffed, saying that he definitely remembered what he was told 15 years ago. I can take a pulse and stuff, and I remember how to do CPR. I argued that yes, but so do the flight attendants, who are better trained to handle situations like these. By this point, we were both a bit annoyed, and he said, "Well, some help is better than none, right?" And no one else had gone up yet, and they were still paging for a doctor overhead. I disagreed, saying, "But if other passengers see Fred going up to the front, they're going to think the situation is handled. Even if there's no doctor on board, there are probably nurses or EMS who are a trillion times more qualified than an Eagle Scout. Even a med student would be more qualified than an Eagle Scout."
Oh,
My
that's
husband
harsh.
was somewhat mad by this point and said, "You just don't know what being an Eagle Scout is like, and you don't respect it." I'm glad he went to help someone needed to. I would have done the same, and it wouldn't prevent other people from coming to help too. I just said, "Well, I disagree. It was very noble of him to try to help, but I think he should probably stay out of it, because others won't think they have to come forward, or because he might accidentally give bad medical advice that could harm the patient." My husband said, "Well, if you were sick on a plane, I would hope someone would come help." And I said, "Well, I would hope that person was more qualified than a freaking Eagle Scout."
Yeah.
And we both just kind of huffed off for a while. So, am I the asshole?
Okay, I'm going to jump in with a somewhat unconventional, and people who peruse Am I the Asshole forums regularly, you'll know, I'm going to throw it in Everyone Sucks here, an ESH. Because I don't really think either of these people are now, mostly just because it sounds like what this very innocuous thing was turned into a massive deal, which is most of my thing.
Hey, look,
I'm gonna say they're
this
both
happens in relationships. I'm just
gonna also say in this post, Dave had to cut down some of it. So the beginning does state, "We love each other very much. This was just a stupid argument, and I wanted your opinion
The
on
stupid argument is a time-honored tradition of any long-term relationship.
That's fair. In that case, I might flip it to no assholes here in that case. But either way, I don't think either of them is completely right, and I don't think either is completely wrong.
I think one of them is far more wrong.
I will also let you know, I did
opinion.
some research on this one. So first off, my boyfriend is an Eagle Scout. So I talked to him about what medical training you have to do to become an Eagle Scout, because there is required medical training.
Yeah.
And according to him, so they have to do CPR and AED certification, which great. Those are great skills to have.
Those are great, yeah.
They have to do Stop the Bleed, so they know how to stop bleeding, and they have to do tourniquets.
Okay.
So wilderness med kind of stuff. If there's a broken bone, if there's bleeding, if they have cardiac arrest, they can help.
Yeah.
Great. Do you know, I also did research on what are the most common in-flight emergencies.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to help.
Oh, well, I mean, there was the plane recently that everybody was throwing up on, apparently.
Yeah, that is not the most common.
It was the most common on that flight, but...
No, I'm curious. I want to know.
Yeah, so the 3 most common in-flight emergencies are syncope, so fainting, GI upset, specifically nausea and diarrhea.
Okay.
And respiratory symptoms, specifically related to panic attacks.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure.
Those don't overlap with the skills of an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
And if an Eagle Scout thinks they do overlap,
I think
somebody's going to lose a limb.
Eagle Scouting, so I was a Girl Scout, like within the world of Scouts, Eagle Scout is like a very impressive thing to have achieved.
There's a lot of work involved in being an Eagle Scout.
And so I think their husband is coming at it from, I got medical training and I did an impressive thing, and you're saying you're devaluing the impressive thing that it is in my head.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
all I think the poster is saying is, you're not a doctor.
Yeah.
And I don't think you and your friend, I don't think the husband or the friend at any point from reading the post clarified that they weren't doctors. Or like clarified the training that they had gotten. And one of the things that, so like something like this had happened, and I had like read the story of it previously, and somebody pointed out that like flight attendants get specific medical training, but are also trained on how to interact and communicate with like the medical professionals that they get put in touch with on the ground.
On the ground, right.
Which an Eagle Scout is not trained in that.
I think we could reframe.
Also, impersonating a doctor is a crime.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm throwing that out there too. If it's true,
But they
because they didn't mention it in the post about whether or not they said, hey, I'm an Eagle Scout when I come up here. I know CPR, etc.
This is my issue, is that like, okay, they've paged a few times, nobody's going up. Like, I have been in situations before where like I've seen someone pass out and I'm like, I am not a doctor yet. I will get there eventually, but I'm not qualified to help. But like, if someone does come up and they're like, need an extra set of hands, need like, someone who has an understanding of like what this person might need, like I can be there to assist, because like it sounds like the person's friend went up. Neither of these people actually know what was said. And it's like, I feel like there's an element of that where it's like, hey, is there anything I can do? I don't have medical training, but I'm at least familiar with first aid, And
I think that's a good thing to do. Like, help out if you can. And if you know you have some skills, that's a great thing to do. I think, depending on what for sure happened in this scenario, like I think the point about knowing that after waiting for doctors to come up, they usually do call for like nurses and EMTs.
Sure. Okay.
Or EMTs, as
or
sometimes
And so I think if there was a nurse or EMT on board, that probably would have been better than an Eagle Scout.
I want to just turn it around a little bit and say, if you go up to the flight attendant who called for a doctor and said, I'm not a doctor, but I did take CPR 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how...
I think
they'd be like, okay, well, thank you very much.
Because the flight attendant is going to have current CPR certification.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need current certification.
Because there's also, and I just want to throw out there as well that like there's the element of, that would be kind of obnoxious and a little bit, egotistical. But there's also like walking up and being like, hey, I don't have medical certification, but I want to help however I can. Just let me know if there's any way I can help. And if they say no, be like, okay, that's fine.
I don't know.
It definitely depends how you introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have like a flight attendant come to you, like you could just like ring the bell and say like, hey, I have this, because like they're not going to say what's going on for of privacy, but the flight attendants know what's going on, and you can say like, I can stop bleeds. Maybe they cut off something on accident.
From how easy it is to get a knife on board a plane.
Well, you could shut your head in.
Cart rolls over and like kneecapped somebody.
Shut your head in the bathroom door.
Because it's like I imagine like, if they're asking for a doctor, it's probably not a CPR emergency. It probably is something like a medical complaint.
Flight attendants can usually do those things because they have current certification.
But like, just communicate.
Just like, hey, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. I'm volunteering.
And I think that's perfectly fine.
Because
as long as you're properly introducing what your training level is.
I guess it's like
and you're not just walking up like, you asked for a doctor?
Don't do that. But it's like, I guess
I'm the next best thing.
Maybe it's like, I'm just of the mind that like I appreciate when people volunteer, because it like otherwise you get a ton of people that are like, I'm sure somebody else has got
bystander effect.
The bystander effect. It's just counteracting the bystander effect. So it's like, I'm a little bit more forgiving in terms of like, somebody is volunteering to help, as long as they're not misrepresenting their credentials. I'm willing to say like, that's a fine thing to do, is to offer aid.
And if like if you can't help, then they'll just make another announcement.
Exactly. They'll just ask for somebody else.
And
that's fine.
They should go down the list. They should be like, is there a doctor in the house? Like, is there somebody who, took CPR 15 years ago in the house? Is there somebody who watches a lot of medical television shows in the house?
If it ever got that low, I think if I was the person in crisis, I would just accept my death.
So there is an actor on Grey's Anatomy. I will not name them. But they were on a flight with their partner and they asked for a doctor overboard and their partner pulled them down of like, you are an actor. You are not a physician. You cannot. But they're so in their head of like, yeah, I play a doctor on TV. Like, yeah, they like went to get up and their part like yanked them back down.
Hey, so our next one, now we're getting into the clinical years. And this one's going to talk about a bit of what it's like to be on clinical rotations as a medical student.
Okay. It's going to be fascinating.
My gynecologist works closely with local medical schools, so she often asks if medical students can observe my routine checkups. She always makes it clear that I can say no, and I've never felt pressured. She only asks during routine visits, not for anything sensitive. I always say yes because I'm comfortable with my body and see it as a learning opportunity for the students. It's never been inappropriate, and I've even learned new things about my body through these interactions. The students are usually a bit shy and awkward, and it's far from a sexy situation. No one looks good with a speculum.
Correct.
I mentioned this during a group video call with 3 female friends while my boyfriend was with me. My friends thought it was strange and asked if it felt weird having people observe. I said it didn't bother me. My boyfriend didn't comment then, but later he had many questions about the students, their number 1 to 3, gender both, their specialty I assume gynecology, and age generally in their 20s. He was uneasy with me exposing myself to anyone but my doctor and didn't like the idea of random college kids looking at my genitals. I reassured him that I'd say no next time, but he's still upset that it wasn't a big deal to me and that it happened at all. Am I the asshole for letting med students observe my gynecologist appointments?
No. Literally not at all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Honey, this is the problem with a lot of AITA posts. Honey, I'm so sorry. That's a red flag. And you might want to consider dumping your boyfriend. I'm very sorry.
Who does he think he is?
Yeah. Who does he think he is?
It's not his appointment. Like,
also, yeah, it's not your appointment. It's not your badge.
College.
Yeah. Like in the longer post, they go on to describe like, he said that it was just college kids. Who knows if they were going to stick with it? They're in medical school. This isn't taking some freshman in a bio class.
I'm not taking out these loans to not stick with it.
Yeah. They're not pulling in some like random kid in the School of Science
They're like
and
volunteers.
being like, hey,
yeah. Like having recently
set up a table in like the student union and we're like, hey, we're looking for volunteers to come look at people's genitals.
Yeah, it's like I've like recently done this like initial speculum exams on a patient. I can guarantee they're so terrified that it's like nothing is going through their mind other than please don't mess up. Please don't mess up.
I think the conversation with the friends was interesting because I do think like there's a difference between if you go to a teaching hospital versus if you don't. Like I just remember like growing up, I did not live by a teaching hospital. And I had never experienced, medical students or residents being involved in my care at all. But once I moved here to the university for college, every time I go to the doctor, there's a medical student, a resident, or a fellow somewhere involved in my care. And so I think if you are going to a teaching institution, there is like an expectation that you will encounter a student of some kind at some point versus, I think the friends saying like that they've never experienced that. I think that's totally normal too.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you don't know.
And you can absolutely say no that you don't want students involved in your care. But like if you go to a teaching hospital, they probably will ask.
Yeah.
And you will interact with residents. You can't always say like, I want to see an attending and nobody else because
you don't want to see the attending anyway. The residents are the ones that are like actually doing all the hands-on stuff. The attending hasn't touched a speculum in 10 years. Has no idea what he's doing.
But is there a line that you as a medical student would draw?
I mean, they're not letting you do anything that.
No, I mean, you as a medical student who is a patient.
I would never let my friend do a pelvic exam on me. But
if I know you, I'm not going to let you near my bits. But like,
we also all should have flags in our charts. Yeah, like as medical students, that would be nice. We're supposed to. Yeah. If you
don't, then ask them to.
You should have it flagged so they shouldn't send a medical student in if you're flagged as a medical student. That way. You don't get one of your classmates that all of a sudden now knows your health information in the same way that we're told, like, hey, if you see your buddy's name pop up on like the list of patients we're seeing today, you don't get to go into their chart. Like you need to disclose this relationship first and they have to.
But also like that being said, I totally agree with the post about like, I used to love when medical students would be involved because I do learn so much more because the attending or resident, whoever's with them, spends a lot more time explaining in detail like what's going on, and so I would learn a lot more from those visits. So I liked it when they were involved.
And I've noticed as a medical student, I sometimes will get a little bit more leniency in terms of how much time I can spend like in the interview itself, because like there's the justification of like, oh, they're still learning, but also it's like the medical student is taking one of the patients off, especially in like family med. I was noticing this. Okay, cool. The student is handling one of these guys' histories. I don't have to do that. So I'll just get to spend a lot longer getting a much more detailed history.
Would this be a red flag if your girlfriend or wife was like, I have a gynecology appointment tomorrow. I'm going to go get a Brazilian first.
I mean, if they want to feel comfort. If that makes them feel comfortable, like going and doing it, go for it.
I think if their intent behind it is to be sexy for them, then that's a weird kink, and I don't want to be involved.
Yeah, that's predatory on the medical staff.
But I think it's pretty common for a lot of women to feel self-conscious before a gynecology exam too, and to like shave or clean or whatever. And I think that's a pretty common feeling for a lotot of women. But
it's actually a joke about
the intent.
There's a joke about like I'm hiding my underwear underneath my pants, even though like
it's like you're about to like fully like examine every single part of my intimate area and like use a speculum to actually get. But like if you see my black underwear, then you're gonna think I'm a harlot.
I haven't had a lot of boyfriends, but I have been one on occasion, and I feel like I've managed to graduate to husband after a few tries. Took me a couple tries. I'm just saying that I think what I know is that, and maybe this has been trained into me. I can't really remember what I was like so long ago, but yeah, you don't get to tell your lady what to do.
Thank you. Green flag, ladies and gentlemen. Green
Unless
flag.
It's cheating, you don't get to say don't do it.
Like your boundaries cover your behavior.
Yes.
And like if you want to set the boundary of you can't have other people interact with you in a medical setting, that's a weird boundary you get to set. But like you get to set that for your behavior. So the boyfriend can say, I don't want to be with you if you participate in medical education. But like
I guess that's fine. I don't like to like you about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't get to keep dating you.
But you don't get to say like you don't get to do this about your care and your body. Like that's not an acceptable.
And before like you start telling your partner what to do, maybe like think about why you feel uncomfortable. Like is it some sort of insecurity where you think a medical student is going to steal your girlfriend after seeing
you're watching too much Grey's Anatomy if you think medical students are that hot and sexy.
We're all exhausted. We're all stressed. This is the farthest thing on our mind.
A little sweaty, you know.
It's like couldn't find the correct fitting scrubs in the room, so like my shirt's too big and my pants are too small.
Look up a photo of what it looks like to look down a speculum on Google, and you'll know no one is turned on by that.
No, it's bad.
All right.
So basically, girls, aim higher. You don't have to settle for this.
Any I guess it's okay to express being uncomfortable about something, even if it's if it's irrational. I mean, how many of our weird fears or anxieties are rational?
Like Julie said, though, it's about like admitting that it comes from a place of insecurity and not that she's doing something wrong.
It's like his immediate reaction is to be like, oh, you're doing something wrong by doing this, instead of being like, wait, why do I feel this weird about a medical procedure and teaching environment?
I do wonder if it's like a cultural thing, because I know that there are a lot of cultures and religions that are very shame.
That's a good point.
Sure,
And
that is a good point.
Was like
they
very,
did not mention like where they're at.
I don't think
at
they
all
would
in the post. So
mention like their background, but there's a lot of people who grew up with a lot of shame and judgment, and need to do a lot of work to get out of that to be healthier. And have better experience.
Or like I said, if it's
culture of like you can't let other people like more people that see you makes you like bad, and like we all did the like sticky piece of tape in like 4th grade or whatever, where they're like, see, the tape is ruined now, and it's like that's not how that works.
Not how it works.
But like I'm a person.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's just a pure
Dave.
Oh,
Okay.
I just figured it out.
Yeah.
I guess the boys
It's not
didn't
good, is
have to
it?
do it when they got separated out for sex ed, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm always
Fourth grade was
curious
a long
what the
time
boys
ago.
do.
I do vividly remember some aspects of it, but
I think it was 5th grade in Indiana. So
It was 5th grade for me, and they had a video where of this people, like these kids singing a song. It was like, just around the corner about puberty, you're gonna start bleeding and do weird stuff. And then guys get to learn about
there was a song?
That was the lyrics?
The 5th grade teachers sang it to each other because like they'd watch it every year. And like the kids are
It's
just
an
kind of
earworm.
like, okay, what's going on?
I think girls got it's going to be bad for you for a while. This is not going to be a fun thing for you to go through. And also you should feel shame for it. And the boys got it's going to smell bad. And here's how to put this on a banana.
In all fairness.
That was it.
In all fairness, I do think telling boys that they're going to smell bad is a bad idea because they really do.
They don't listen.
That's fair. Please, yes, please do.
Let them know.
But also tell them spraying an entire can of Axe on your body is not what's going to help you.
I wonder if that's like a crucial moment. What's called like in that Spider-Man movie, like the plot point or
The core memory.
core memory that they need to go through in order to progress.
Oh,
so you have to do.
it.
This thing is not great that you do spraying Axe all over your body, but it's an important part of development.
Yeah,
at a certain point.
It's a phase. Yeah.
All right.
American Girl Book of You. That was a good one. I like that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went to Catholic school, so I did not have any sex ed.
I was homeschooled through middle school, and I just skipped that whole thing. And I was like, here's an American Girl book. Go learn about your period. Come to me with any questions.
They gave us one pad each and didn't explain what it was or how to use it.
Can we do a new podcast where it's just horror stories?
Why did they even give you the pad?
We should just like talk about
Because now you're prepared.
Yeah, that's all you need.
You have one
to know.
pad, and that's probably fine.
when you need to use it.
Yeah, and how to use it.
Your body
It's
knows
like your
how to use
frontal
a
lobe
pad.
fully developing. It just clicks in.
It shows an artifact.
It's like that bit in Iron Giant where the dent on his head like pops open and he remembers everything.
It's in your bag and it just starts glowing when you're ready to use it. And your teacher's like, something's going on in your bag. And you're like, oh no, it's time.
You get to the bathroom, you wield it out like Excalibur. Just the time has come. Simba.
There was a little kid in like a public restroom once, and I was like opening up a product, and this little kid in like a stall over with their parent goes, why do other people get snacks? And I was like, that is not what this is. I was like, I am trying so hard to like let you have this conversation with your parent in like a separate
Bathroom
space.
conversations are great with children. They're really a lot of fun.
I wish I had a snack in the bathroom.
I know. I was like, I'm not gonna lie, that is like, that's kind of relatable. Just like, damn it, that sounds like Oreos. I want some.
Sometimes they do have candy in them. I've never tried it because I don't want to try bathroom candy, but I've seen them where like, oh, they have pads and tampons and then like this weird, I don't know if it's like drugs, but like,
bathroom candy is a boundary for me. I'm not. I don't want bathroom candy.
People, my office is right near the bathrooms, which is fantastic. So OSAC staff members routinely leave their food and coffee in my office while they go to the bathroom because they don't want to bring their food. I just can't imagine walking to a bathroom and being like, candy.
It's like, it's bad. I don't want that.
I don't know how old it is, but like, like the mall candy, sometimes they have like just like the gumball machine or something that has like the gumballs in there. Maybe they have the idea that if you put a quarter in to get it, then it's probably fine.
Yeah. Well, it is enclosed by
I thought you meant like
sphere.
just like a bunch of like bubble gum and just like a plate in the bathroom.
Oh, no. So bad.
Part of like a little candy
right
machine.
next to the sink too, so you can drip the water.
Candy covered chocolate pieces. Chocolate
morsels.
No free branding.
My big flex from the 90s is that I used to work for MTV Networks in Times Square, and I was an in-house temp, so it wasn't very fancy at all, but I did get to go to the Christmas party one year, and it was off the hook. This is back in the day when MTV was actually
Guys, it was
a thing.
off the chain.
But they did have, it was a giant party, and at every table was a vat of Kalamata olives, just with no plates or spoons, or so you're supposed to reach in.
Yeah, you eat those plain.
Well, I was gonna say, did they not
like
have
a
toothpicks?
toothpick or like a
No.
Oh, see, that's
you were
the
just
problem.
supposed to reach in
I don't
and
want
grab it.
everybody's fingers in the olive bowl.
Well, also now you've got olive juice on your fingers.
I know.
Like, I think somebody might have meant to set out toothpicks and someone forgot, and that person probably got fired.
That's what that reminded. The bathroom candy.
Bathroom candy.
Okay.
I think the safer explanation is that was drugs.
Olives? Did they still have the pit?
I don't recall because I did not partake of the vat of fingered olives.
Well, okay, well, we can move on to our next story.
Next one. Woo.
So our next one is getting into the financial burden of medical education and how you can talk about those things with the other people in your life.
Oh, interesting.
My boyfriend and I are in law and medical school, respectively. We lived together for 2 years in a cheaper apartment, but now we've moved to a more expensive city. In the old apartment, I was an undergrad and he was a mechanic. I paid him what my parents gave me for housing, resulting in a 60-40 split. When we both got into schools in the same city, we decided to live together again. I told him I didn't want to take on more debt, so he covered more of the rent due to his scholarship and military benefits. I secretly took out extra loan money as a nest egg when I started med school. My parents continued to pay my rent, leading to a 70-30 split with the increased costs. Now, I want to use the saved loan money to buy a $10,000 horse, which could be a good investment. I told my boyfriend and offered him a chance to invest, but he's upset and wants to discuss it.
I have so many questions. Okay. So
I think the big red flag for this one for me is the unnecessary amount of detail
no.
they provided. Like,
No. I need way more detail.
Oh, okay.
Because, I'm sorry. I am going to go on a slight rant here. I apologize to my fellow hosts.
Have we triggered something in you, Miranda?
No, it's because we were talking earlier about all those volunteer hours, and I talked a bunch about a place I volunteer with. That's a horse barn. So, like, I am very aware of how expensive horses are. And, like, two things. Number one, they're saying a $10,000 horse is an investment. A $10,000 horse is usually like probably already broke, probably had some training, like might not be a show jumper because those tend to go for, or a lesson horse because those tend to go for a lot more, but like probably not a project horse. What investment? Because if you're making it as an investment, you're thinking about like, I'm going to spend a lot of time training it. I'm going to turn it into like a $50,000 horse and then sell it. That's so much expense in the meantime. You're going to have to pay so many vet bills, potential boarding, potential like a ton of other stuff. So that's going to be a lot of time on your part if you're going to want to turn that around, and it's not guaranteed. Okay.
So they say the horse's lineage could mean that this would be a great investment. So maybe like stud fees or something. Like
actually, if it's stud fees, maybe we'd have to do a lot. Like $10,000.
$10,000 isn't very much.
Yeah, and because stud fees, I think. Oh gosh, I think those go for like $500. But you'd still have to do it quite a bit. And in the meantime, you still have an entire horse to take care of.
Yeah, I think regardless of like if the decision they're making is financially sound or not, if I was their partner, the thing that I would be frustrated about is the deception involved in it. The weirdness, and you're becoming like an MLM girly right now, trying to get me in on the ground floor.
That feels odd of not coming to him and saying, hey, I really want to do this thing. Can we do it? She's coming to him and saying, I have an opportunity for you to invest.
They got hit with the hey girly text.
If you just make a small deposit of $5,000 in my company, you can be your own boss.
Yeah, I also think like the deception involved in the fact that her parents and him are both covering all of her expenses so that she wouldn't take out loans. Is a big slap in the face to all of them that she's taking out a loan to buy a horse.
Well, the money was taken out initially to have like a nest egg of like, you don't know if you're going to get in a crazy accident.
But a nest egg is not for buying a horse.
Like I have a nest egg. My nest egg was like, I needed to pay a bunch of repair bills on my car when someone hit it. That's the nest egg.
But
that's a totally fine having emergency money, totally fine. Using it to do something
that is not an emergency.
That is not an emergency and has the potential to go very, because
look. Sometimes you need an emergency horse. Like if your car breaks down and you need to go somewhere, you can get on the horse.
Rules for horses.
Yes, there are road rules. Like you can't ride a horse everywhere. So depending on where they live too, which she said it was a bigger, more expensive city, I'm guessing they do not allow horses wherever she is.
Where's your horse going to fit?
Which means, because I was going to say,
to where the horse is.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, now, please, any listeners, I know a lot about horse care, not about the horse economy, so I don't necessarily know if this is a sound investment.
The horse economy.
The horse economy. Well, like stuff.
What are horses paying for groceries these days?
We're going to go viral on like the horse part of the internet, and you're just going to tell us that we're wrong.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is that like stud fees are a real thing, and they're pricey. It's like you can charge a lot for like a horse with a really good lineage. But horses are also very expensive. And if you can't, like, if you don't own the property where the horse is living, you're going to be paying boarding. I have looked into this out of like, I've been in an internet rabbit hole or two, just being like, I wonder if this would be something I could
sure
swing.
You don't want to buy a horse?
I really want to. I can't afford one. And
are you going to use your medical student loans to buy a horse?
I don't have medical student loans. We're
SCPs. Oh my God, I forgot.
I know, they're insufferable, aren't they?
Are you going to use your grant money to buy a horse?
The NIH would not like that.
Do you want a house or a horse?
My stipend is like barely enough to keep me alive. Yeah. The horse is going to die.
I can get a hobby horse and that's it.
Yeah. But basically, I say this to be like the cheapest porting I could find in Iowa, in rural Iowa, was I think like $300 to $500 a month.
Which Iowa has pretty cheap in general, like expenses.
And that's
stuff.
not counting, like sometimes food is included, sometimes it isn't. That's not counting buying any tack for it to keep it in shape. That's not counting medical bills, farrier bills, like anything like that. So
I assume you need stuff too to like do the studding as well.
I think most people
really,
send them somewhere.
Yeah, it's not a DIY project.
Yeah, it's not a DIY.
Look, I don't know how you get horses to mate.
I follow a farm on TikTok.
You
that,
talk
sends
nicely
them
to
off
them.
to do it, and it's a whole process. Like, there's a big.
I wasn't sure if you need
place
to
in
like
Texas.
buy like some LED lights, some candles.
You have to buy like a machine
special
and then like tease horses essentially to like. It's a whole thing. It's a rabbit hole on TikTok. Highly recommend it. But
see, I was going to say, like, my impression is basically it's like you put all the mares into one pasture and then just like take your like stallion and just be like, have fun.
I think that's
Go
if
make us
you're
horses.
trying to get them to make those horses, but if you're trying to like collect it to send it to a horse that isn't currently
that's
there,
what I was
sure,
that's
okay,
a whole separate
that's a
thing.
whole process for sure. Yeah, because I've seen videos like that, but they're basically just like delivering the whole stallion and just like sending it out into the pasture. So I imagine there are different ways of doing it. Yeah. Because obviously, like on the one hand, you have to have the equipment to like get the horse, and then because on the one hand, so basically, you either have to have the equipment to get the horse to a place, or you have to have a question to get the horse DNA to a place. Yeah. Either way, you're going to need equipment.
You can't just put a horse on a train and like send them like.
Also, it's like I'm not one to like
see the pictures of horses in weird places.
You have to put them on special like horse.
Depends
trains.
on if the train actually runs to where you want to send it, though.
Is there an app? Is there an app?
It's actually just regular Tinder.
I am interested in men, women, both, horses.
That's getting into some weird territory.
In undergrad, when I was doing research on flies, I made a Tinder for flies. Because we had to do a lot of like specific mating of the flies, and so I wanted to like keep track of all of the different fly breeds that we had, and then when I would put them together, it was like the Tinder like format, and then I could see when I would put them together what like their Punnett Square stuff would be, but I would make little bios for them just for fun.
I completely get it because Pam Geyer, who is our now former co-director, is a fruit fly research person. Listen, the fruit fly people are a different breed and I love them. So I absolutely think that's the thing that fruit fly people would do.
I don't do flies anymore, but when I did, that was what got me through my day, was making Tinder for flies.
I made an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of it, which I think really
maybe I'll send Dave some screenshots.
Please do.
Yes, I love this.
Please do. That would be incredible.
I'm going to change the subject slightly because I think we've pretty thoroughly settled on like, yes, you are in fact the asshole. If I may offer a suggestion though, why that as an investment? Like crypto exists. Like if you're going to spend your money on something risky, I don't endorse it. It's a bad way to lose money or a good way to lose money. But I'm just saying, like, if you're going to lose money somehow, at least do the one that doesn't involve an animal. You know,
I think somebody just wanted the goddamn horse.
Yeah, I think someone wanted a horse, and they're trying to make it sound like it's a good thing. Yeah, like an investment. Like it's not just something they want to do.
I will confess. Okay, so I am not great with money in general, and so I've said on the show before that I have ceded the money work to my wife, who does a fantastic job with it. But I did accidentally buy a chair on Facebook Marketplace without telling anybody about this chair until it was basically time to go pick it up. And it wasn't that, it was only $180. But I did feel guilty afterwards, especially because I had probably been, drinking when I got this chair. So I guess what I'm saying is, communicate with your partner.
Shopping sprees on Facebook Marketplace.
Also, Dave, if your worst marital guilt is like, I bought a $180 chair on Facebook Marketplace.
This person wants to buy a $10,000 horse.
Yeah. Like apples and oranges, I feel like
you think so?
Okay. They're keeping a secret too.
They also
is the
say
whole thing.
about $10,000, and from after reading this, I feel like it's like they're rounding down significantly.
Probably.
Almost certainly, yeah.
And it just turns from like, I took out a loan for a nest egg to I took out a loan to buy a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, if you want to take out a loan to do something irresponsible, it's like, this is America. You are allowed to do that. But like, don't lie about why you took out the loan.
And also don't be upset when the person who is spending their finances on you to support
basically
you is
subsidizing
upset about
your
it.
Yeah. Like they're allowed to call you. You are a jerk.
And
like you can own
be like,
that,
I do not want to join this investment opportunity.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, since you have the Reddit pulled up, because for my own, we don't have to keep this in, but my own personal curiosity, is there anything in like the comments or any additional information on what this person's horse experience is, like why they thought this would work? Because I'm genuinely
She's
curious.
a 10-year-old girl.
So in the post, she says that I want to use it to buy my first horse, as I'm a professional horse rider.
Oh,
how are you?
What do you mean professional horse rider? And you're in medical school? What?
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
You can't be both.
If the OP commented on any of the replied to any comments.
Like, I guess is she like a high level rider? Like that was her hobby, I guess. But either way, I don't even think like professional horse riders make that much money.
Maybe it's an issue like that really old movie called like Black Beauty. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen the movie. I've read the book.
It's like a wild horse. She can tame it. And
yes. No, I think. Are you thinking Flicka?
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, because Black Beauty is like a horse that's like born in England and was like raised there. Flicka is like that's such a good horse girl movie, but just like he's so wild, but I can tame him. Yeah, I am kind of like,
but they're like doubled down.
Yeah.
For. Lying about it and also doing something stupid.
Yeah, this is a very silly thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, all right. What's our last one?
Well, our last one continues on this same theme of interesting career decisions and interesting marital decisions.
All right, here we go.
I started medical school last week, but accepted a 1-year deferment due to clerical errors and a faculty emergency without asking my wife. I've always wanted to be a doctor like my parents and wife, who was a nurse. However, my true passion is MMA. I wrestled in high school, have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, train in Muay Thai, and am choosing in amateur MMA. My coach believes I could go pro if I lose 30 pounds. The deferment felt like a perfect opportunity to focus on MMA before committing to a medical career and its debt. We can live comfortably on my wife's salary, and I might gain sponsors on Instagram. But my wife is furious I didn't consult her and worries about our future if I get injured. My parents, who plan to pay for 3 years of medical school, are also furious. Now, my dad found me a post-bachelor research position that could help with medical school later, and my wife insists I take it. I want to train full-time.
I want to train full-time.
Does he sound like an MMA?
Kind of like a serial killer.
Okay, so serial killer.
So for some context, according to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Belt and Stripes graduation system, for juveniles and adults, it starts at white, blue, and then purple. So purple is considered the high level of intermediate, but still intermediate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe 2.5 years of jiu-jitsu from what it looks like.
I mean, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt because they're not trying to be professional in jiu-jitsu. They're trying to be professional in MMA.
So MMA, it stands for mixed martial arts, and that includes things like, so it's a combination of all of those martial arts, like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, etc.
Fighting style.
Sure, okay,
and wrestling is going to help you in like the grappling aspect of it. But as a former wrestler, you should know that losing 30 pounds is going to dramatically change you.
Yeah.
Like,
also, that's a big weight class jump.
Hang on. Were you a former wrestler?
So my little brother is. So he wrestled all through middle and high school.
Okay.
And did like fairly well, but just from being associated with like wrestlers and being at Iowa also. Like
I was a big wrestling culture here.
That's true. Yeah.
Listeners.
Like cutting water weight leading up to something is totally fine. Like you can drop a couple pounds. That's fine if you cut water and then you hydrate afterwards as you're allowed. But my brother would go from his walking around weight and maybe like losing 10 pounds during season was a lot to him. And that's because he was doing it in like a safe way, in a way that you can still compete and you're not running around with like a bunch of trash bags around you so that you sweat a ton more and lose weight. Like, there is a dangerous way of doing it that, hot take here, but I'll fight you on it. A lot of wrestlers, especially in like the lower levels, do very poorly at, and they do it very dangerously.
I think one of the commenters says it well, that they said, "You don't even seem to have good evidence you'll succeed. You're 2-0 in amateur bouts, and your coach thinks you might be good if you drop a massive 3 weight classes. Give me a break."
That's the thing, is that like I was willing to give some of the benefit of the doubt. That makes me want to give less of a benefit of the doubt. But even then, I feel like we're running up against the thing we talked about with the last question, which is, if you wanted to fulfill your dreams and go chase that star, fine. Again, it's America. But like, you are married. You probably should have consulted and like, obviously the deferment sounds like it was a last minute decision due to circumstances outside of control. But if you were that serious about it, probably wanted to have a longer discussion before trying to commit.
Also, I'm interested about like, because he says he's always wanted to be a doctor because his parents were doctors. But then he says his true passion is MMA. So I'm like, which one is it to be a doctor? It's a big investment.
Can you combine the two in some way? Like, okay, I have an idea.
Like Batman.
I have an idea. You could be an orthopedist who specializes in revising old fractures, but your technique is to just like break people's,
just punch them.
like
I just think like, if you truly want to be a doctor, and even if you love MMA too, you can combine those things if you actually want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe he doesn't actually want to be a doctor. I mean, I don't know entirely because there's not a lot of details. Obviously, we don't know these
Well, they
people.
do say don't be a doctor unless it's the only thing that you want to be, because it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Also, what are the odds?
So he only has a year of this deferment.
Well,
can you become professional in a year?
Or
Probably
what are the odds in a year you get hurt so much? Like in MMA, you could get a concussion
just
that
like
means
the wife
you can no
was saying
longer
she was worried about.
succeed.
I don't know. I feel like this guy is probably too dumb to be a doctor. I'm just gonna.
He got in, and that's most of the
I think
battle.
that's very judgmental of you, Dave.
Oh, I feel like. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
I'll probably take that out because now I look like the asshole.
To become an MMA fighter, you wouldn't come to my MMA matches, Dave.
Yeah, you wouldn't come to her MMA matches.
I would come.
I don't know if I would actually. I'm a little squeamish about violence.
I guess it's like I like to give people something of the benefit of the doubt, last horse person notwithstanding, but that's just my personal bias. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with continuing it as on a hobby level, maybe even an intense hobby level. If you're like, I'm just curious to see if I could make it. And if you start having like great success, if you start having like really good success, then, maybe revisit it in 6 months. If you are just like, what you described is not very impressive, but like maybe you're a bad communicator. I don't know. But like,
clearly so, since he was hiding a lot of this from his wife.
Yeah.
But.
And he also said, like, they want to pursue this for sure before I pick up all the school debt and am forced to be in medicine for the next 30 years. Like, to me,
that sounds like it's not a passionate. Yeah.
It sounds like they're doing it because their parents did it.
Yeah. It really does. It's a question of like, what is your priority? Because if you could, unfortunately, this is a situation you have to pick what's more important to you right now. Because if medical school is more important to you, then absolutely do not do this. Is a bad idea.
Yeah.
But
I'm not saying like
your opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
Like medicine isn't better than MMA in any way. It depends. But the issue here, I
you're
would
less
say
likely
is more,
to get your ass kicked, but
I
don't know about that, actually.
Yeah, actually fair.
Remember those stats about people with disabilities getting abused in hospital?
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Also,
yeah.
like if you're working psych, like
yeah, but the issue here,
So then
I feel, is
MMA
the
might be
communication.
valuable.
maybe.
Actually, do you know that they teach MMA to people at the hospital here?
Seriously?
Certain positions, so it
That's
depends
so
what position you
cool.
are. But they have people come in and so my boyfriend is a nurse manager here, and they made him learn MMA.
Well, it's
from
a really
like an MMA instructor.
Yeah.
For like because they're low on security and stuff.
Personal defense and things like that.
Yeah, or it's like basically because like there are patients
That's
that are
crazy.
just like.
Yeah.
My understanding is a lot of MMA is learning how to like take people down who are potentially as strong or stronger than you
ways.
in different ways. Yeah, like non-lethally restrain people.
Yeah. Pre med school, I was a nursing assistant at like a high crime rate hospital, I guess is what I'll call it. And they also made us learn MMA. They had a former Secret Service agent come in to teach us, and it was a useful skill. I did not
know that this was a thing. This is very interesting. All right.
If you're considered a high-risk healthcare professional, it's pretty common for them to have you learn MMA.
Yeah, because you don't want to be kind of in a situation where because most of the time if someone is getting that violent in a hospital, it's not their fault. They don't know what they're doing. They're either on drugs, or they have a condition, like they're delirious. It's not like something has gone on, so it's not their fault. But also you are now in a situation, and it was an unpredictable situation, and it's honestly helpful to have that kind of training.
You're not doing it to restrain people against their will. Like you are preventing harm in this situation because someone is acting like not of their own volition, really.
Yeah.
And are going to cause more harm either to themselves or others if you don't take like the last final step at your disposal to protect everyone involved.
I was just imagining like somebody doing a pile driver on a patient.
That's WWE.
Yeah, different thing.
Sorry, I was confused.
Oh shit, he's got the speculum.
Oh wow.
Wait, okay, hang on. Can we patent medical WWE? Because I'm in love with this idea now.
Dave, get on it.
Dave, get on it.
Instant. It's done. I'll call the lawyers.
I want to see Ortho Bro with like in a little Speedo. Like
I think they do have
that
with the big
bench,
belt.
Yeah, the bench press-a-thon.
Yeah, bench press-a-thon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We do.
It's a little more focused.
It's a little bit more tame though.
More showy.
But what if we had them wrestle?
Yes.
I think there's like a fear of liability about people getting hurt.
Well, we can make them sign waivers.
Yeah.
No, waivers only can go so far.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a killjoy.
Bloodborne pathogen stuff.
In, like
we
wrestling on like the lower levels is like you can't force a joint against its like against the way it moves. So like you couldn't like push down on my elbow right now.
Oh, you can't do an armbar?
You can't move it out of its like normal degrees of rotation.
You can do it to an extent.
Well, I mean, sure.
You can't do it in a way to intentionally cause injury. And I think after putting a bunch of medical students through anatomy where we all learn how it's supposed to go, that maybe you have a little bit more knowledge on exactly what joints shouldn't be doing.
Well, see,
I think the Regents might have a thing or two to say to the Carver College of Medicine.
Okay,
if we...
I say this from a perspective of having been taught anatomy in undergrad by a former Marine sniper, where he very clearly like articulated to us like the dangerous things that can happen when wrong things happen to your body. And like he was speaking from experience.
Yeah.
It was a scary thing. I trusted him fully. He was a great like mentor and teacher. But there was a point of like, oh my gosh, that is very scary.
Yeah.
That like this can happen to my body. Please stop talking about
Here's
that.
the thing though. WWE is not wrestling. It's a show.
Yeah.
Oh, it's choreography.
So
yeah.
But
I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the time, I mean, they have like some of them have stage props for some of them. So like the chairs are already broken. They just like hit them slightly and it fully shatters.
I or it's like I saw something where like a guy was like whipped with a chain because they had like a dog collar fight or something, and then like there were actual like welts on his back and
Well, they do get like real injured. They just also try and minimize it because they want to let that person continue performing for longer, and then the whole system gets to make money off of it.
Or the girl that had her ear ripped off.
Huh? What?
That happened in MMA last season.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Also, the whole Mike Tyson situation. He was
Yeah.
He's a very impressive fighter.
Anyway, the point is you can combine MMA and medicine if you actually like medicine. You don't have to do this whole all or nothing situation.
Yeah.
And hiding from your wife.
Yeah.
You could be a ring doctor. Like, you can just do that.
True.
You don't have to be the person
That'd be
fighting.
fun,
I mean, I don't want to say you're the asshole because it sounds like you're a dreamer. But you kind of are.
Say they are.
I think the communication part is
I forgot about the communication. The communication part thrust it into asshole. Yeah.
I think the fact that
Sorry,
they said...
Please don't say that. Nobody... That's not how we say that. Miranda?
They also said that they hoped to
0.1 seconds after I said it.
I'm trying to help you here and like move past it. But like they said they'd hoped to backdoor their way into an... I'm sorry.
What is happening now?
They'd hope to backdoor their way into an MMA career through medicine.
What?
So you don't want to be a doctor. Like,
that's like, I'm like, just maybe give up the medicine thing.
Yeah, this is definitely a situation of like the problem is not you wanting to do MMA. The problem is you expecting everybody else to be okay with it, given that you were intending on going to medical school and everybody had already planned around this.
And
you did not
that's like
communicate your
a set
intent.
path to success.
Yeah.
Versus this MMA is a bigger gamble of like a 1 in a million chance that you're going to make it.
Yeah. It comes back to boundaries where it's like you're allowed to say, I want to do this because this is my dream. But your wife is also allowed to say, cool, I don't want to stay in this relationship because this is a lot of insecurity for me.
Yeah. And she's not even like, from the way OP describes it too, their wife isn't saying like, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to follow their dreams. She's saying, and I'll like quote the poster here, wife is furious at me for not running this by her. And she thinks I'm basically putting our future in jeopardy if I get injured.
Yes, because
so it sounds like your wife cares about the fact that you didn't communicate and like treat her as a partner.
Yeah.
And that you could get so incredibly hurt.
And you're changing your future that you've built together without consulting her before.
So kind of his dad to like find a position for him.
Yeah. Like that was a lot of extra effort.
Really, really like.
It's giving Nepo energy.
Yeah.
Of like
Nepo baby.
Nepo baby.
Well, that's our show.
Please cut out that thing I said.
I don't know
thrusting or about the back door.
Yeah, that one. No, that door is faith. That's your own bed. You got to lie in.
I'm fine with.
I have news for you. I have news for you. That also is staying in. Holly, Julie, Faith, Miranda, thanks for being a part of the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Hey. You're welcome.
I love judging people.
And
I
what?
love judging people.
I have opinions.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting 4 opinionated women. This is very empowering.
You're welcome. And I think I would be thrust into assholedom if I didn't thank you, Shortcuts, for making us part of your week.
If you're new here and you like what you heard today, follow the show wherever podcasts are available, like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Also, if you come across any Am I the Asshole things that you want us to react to, we would love to keep doing this.
This show is made possible by a generous donation by the Carver College of Medicine student government and ongoing support from the Writing and Humanities program.
Our fantastic music is by Dr. Vox and Catmosphere.
And I'm Dave Etler saying don't let the bastards get you down. Talk to you in 1 week.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Hi, Shortcoats. Look, life in medical education, life in America, life in the world is often difficult. And I often wish I could help. All I have is this podcast, but in my wildest dreams, you have the support you need to lead a life of your choosing. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever ways you define those words. So if you need support because you've experienced racism, discrimination, harassment, mental health crises, I want you to be able to get the help that you need. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes to some resources that you can use. But the bottom line is that for what it's worth, I see you. I know you're out there. I wish I could do more. Maybe I can in ways that I don't understand yet or know about. But I see you, and I'm glad you're here, and other people are too. The Short Code Podcast is a proud member of the MedEd Media Network. Inspiration, information, and guidance on your journey to medical school and beyond at mededmedia.com.